Hello and welcome to Selecting the Right Payroll Partner for Your Business Growth. This webcast is brought to you by CPA Practice Advisor and Iris Payroll. I'm Gail Perry, Editor-in-Chief of CPA Practice Advisor, and I'll be your moderator today. Before we get started, I'd like to explain how CPE for this webcast works. The webcast qualifies for 1 credit of continuing professional education. If you plan to earn credit for attending this session, you must stay with us for at least 50 minutes. In addition, we will display 4 polling questions during the webcast. You'll need to record an answer for at least 3 of the questions, as this is our verification that you are still watching the event. Later today, you'll receive an email from CPA Practice Advisor that contains a link to your CPE certificate, assuming you met the requirements for CPE. Please note that we can give continuing education credit for multiple people watching on the same computer. So if there are others in your office who would like to attend this event at the same computer, please have them join you now. And at the end of the event, we'll provide an opportunity for you to send us their email addresses so they too can receive credit. At any time, you can enter any questions you might have in the Ask a Question box provided on your screen. And our speakers will try to get to as many questions as possible during the presentation. Questions not answered during this live webinar will be addressed by the speakers afterwards via email. Slides for this event are available for download. If you look on your screen on the left side, there's an option that says Event Resources. And if you click that, you'll see a PDF that you can download that contains today's slides. Today, we're joined by Tyler DeRosa and Patrick McTamney, and I'm going to turn it over to them right now.
Thank you so much, Gail. And thanks everyone for being here. Thank you, Pat, as well. So yes, today we're going to go through what we believe is a very, very fine difference between a payroll partner and a payroll vendor. And just to kick it off, my name is Tyler DeRosa. I am the Director of New Business Development and Sales at Iris Software Group, and we cover payroll and human capital management. And Pat, of course, is one of my colleagues, and I'll let him introduce himself briefly as well.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Pat McTamney. I'm an Iris sales rep on the payroll technology side. I owned and operated a payroll service bureau for about 15 years. Started as a startup with no accounts and built that business up to about 400 accounts and exited that space at the start of the pandemic in 2020. So that's a little background on me.
And just so everyone, of course, is aware, so we originally had one of our current customers slated to give this webinar along with me today, Gustavo Fernandez. Fortunately, he actually about an hour ago had notified myself and our marketing group that he had a very personal emergency this morning that kind of left him and his firm as well as his family in a little bit of a tough place. So naturally, we said take care of that first, and we'll figure out everything. So Pat was gracious enough to step in and cover for Gustavo today, and we wish Gustavo the best right now. But Pat is certainly a pool and wealth of knowledge when it comes to payroll, so nobody better to have on here than him as well.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. All right, we're going to kick it off with the first poll, and then we're going to get into a lot of Q&A. That's going to enlighten a lot of you and give you a lot of insightful information. But here is the first poll. And Gail, I'll slide it over to you to review.
Okay, this is our first of 4 polling questions. How are you currently providing payroll to your customers? And your options are, we aren't currently, but we're thinking about it, or we're doing it in-house, or we are outsourcing payroll processing. So click the answer that applies most appropriately to you and your business, and then click the submit button. And if you have any problems entering answers to any of our polling questions on your screen, you can always enter your answer in the Ask a Question box, and we will record it there. Okay, and we'll leave this up for just another few seconds. Give everyone a chance to answer. And then you can see our results. On screen, it looks like the majority are doing payroll in-house, 40%. 45%, sorry. Okay, I think we're ready to move on.
All right, so just some of the topics of discussion today to go over. Again, key differences that, as really an industry leader in payroll, we have analyzed as making a huge difference in a payroll provider as a vendor versus a partner. Real world examples, how this actually makes a difference on your payroll business, and then making sure that you are evaluating a payroll provider in every granular way to make sure that you're looking at a payroll partner to be strategic with you versus a payroll vendor to kind of just transact with you. Next slide. All right, so this slide just, again, covering Pat's Payroll Service Bureau business, Payroll Service Pros. Pat, first question that I'd love for you to address with you in the crowd here is, how did you originally start handling payroll? And with that, what worked initially, what didn't work with the payroll process and the technology you used?
Okay, so I got started in the business, and I was a startup with no accounts. So, worked in order to find some businesses to get started with, and referrals to other folks, other businesses. Did some work for some CPA firms that they wanted their customers to be handled. They didn't want to process in the firm. So we did that as well. And, what I found was that the technology that I had wasn't really sufficient. I bought a payroll product and used it, but a little bit short-sighted in that regard because it didn't have a lot of the features and functions that I really needed to grow my book of business. It was okay for small accounts, but as you start to grow a little bit, people need other things from you. You've got to have a bunch of ancillary products and services. Timekeeping is one, employee onboarding. So there's a lot of things that I saw that I had to go out and get if I were going to grow that business and rather not stay stagnant. So that's kind of my startup session.
Awesome. Okay. Next slide, please. So, Pat, when you kind of set out to say what I have is not sufficient right now, after figuring out why it wasn't either, did you look at a lot of different options out there, payroll software providers? And if you did look at many, who stood out? And for better or for worse, which options stood out to you?
So, I did look at several things. You could go as, a partner with one of the big guys out there. And I didn't want to do that because I wanted to be in charge of my customers. I didn't want them to put the processing on someone else and so forth. I wanted to be in full control of everything. So if there were a tax notice, customers think that should be resolved in a day, as opposed to, if you have to wait 6 weeks for somebody to do that. So I evaluated a lot of different platforms and was also part of an owners group. So we would evaluate platforms, work on office procedures and things like that, that were common to each service bureau in handling their clients. But I looked at probably 10 or 12 softwares and made the decision that I started with that one. And then I moved over to Iris Payroll. After that, I guess I was with the first provider for about 3 to 4 years. And then I moved to Iris. And so I needed those features. I needed, compliance. I needed tax. Customers want you to handle their information. They're trusting you with that. And, payroll is one of those kind of recession-resistant products and services that you can offer to your clients. And most people really, they want to know that everything's going to be handled. Their employees are going to be paid on time. Their taxes are going to be paid. All their forms are going to be filed. It just needs to be easy. When I would call on my customers or prospects, I knew that, next to the thing that they did to generate their living, payroll and taking care of their staff was the second most important thing. And so when they trust you with that, you've got to meet that need every time out. So,
Did you find that providers that were specifically offering the payroll vehicle to businesses like yours, which were payroll service businesses, made a difference? Because you mentioned some of the big box national providers, they could be very widespread and they could be, offering the payroll solution to just about any business. So did you see that was a difference?
Yeah, I did see that, because you don't want them competing with you for your customers, and you want to own your book of business. You don't want it to be with someone else that they're the reporting agent and everything else. In that regard, you want to I wanted to run my business and serve my customers, and clients are kind of like people. They all have different personalities and needs. And so, best matching your staff with the, as a processor for them, or however you handle the process with the payroll, even if it's allowing the client to do it themselves, on your white label platform, you've got those things out there. So I found that, the features are really important to folks. The smaller ones, not so much. But once you start to grow a little bit, you've got to have those things or they'll leave you and move on. So,
Sure.
And that's kind of why I moved over to Iris.
Yeah, I mean, a software that obviously is modern and it's up with times, but is one that's not just that's you have to look and feel this way to work in it. It's more of a one size fits all approach, and that's normally the platform that wins for a payroll service business. Awesome.
Yeah, there are plenty of things off the shelf out there, right, that you can buy, but
right.
it's just a software.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good point. It needs to be pliable. Not every business needs every bell and whistle. Maybe some don't need employee onboarding, like you mentioned, but there are going to be some that are calling for it, and there are going to be businesses that never need it. So I think when you're growing a payroll business like you did, it's important to have a system that's able to mold to each particular client as best as possible. Awesome. Next slide, please. So obviously we know that making sure it was modern with features and functionalities, and that's going to just continue to be the trend over years, is that payroll software has got to be up to date with the top-notch features and bells and whistles. But what were priorities of yours, maybe from a business level, when selecting a new payroll software?
So as the workforce gets younger, the need for instant information, access, apps, and so forth, they've become really, really important. So we evaluated technology, and we wanted to be forward-looking. We didn't want to buy something today and then would have to convert 3 to 5 years down the road. So we wanted a partner in the software area that would continually develop the platform so that it was available, the next great things out there were available to you, and that was willing to work with you to grow your business. So it's really important to find a partner that's going to help you grow, provide services to you, that can assist with demos, things along that line, training of your staff and so forth, so that, your team's not just left out there by itself. So those were the things that I looked at. And I said, we've got to have these things as we go forward, because we don't want to convert again.
I love that. I think working with all different generations, knowing we have about 4 that we can obviously deal with in business right now, I think that's a hugely not misunderstood, but underrated aspect in business, is not really considering generations and how some are obviously on their way out and leaving business and going into retirement, and how younger generations are coming into business, and you have to. It's important for technology, and when you're a service business, to have that combination that actually resonates with each generation in particular. And then, of course, thinking future, yes, you're looking at younger generations and how they come up through the ranks, and what are their sweet spots, and what's important to them. So I think that's a really good point, Pat. What were some of the biggest differences you saw between the payroll vendors that you were looking at? You don't have to remember all 10, but if there were some stark differences between any of the vendors that you looked at when you were switching, what were they?
Well, I think, one of the big things was the knowledge of the person that was calling on me. Did they understand my space, or were they just selling payroll software? Did they have solutions for the needs that I had? Did they take the time to listen to me, across my book of business, from the small account to the large account? I had some clients that were 750 plus employees. So, the needs of those clients are drastically different based on the size, the industry that you're serving, and so forth. So, some of those folks just were trying to sell software. They didn't have a solution. It was a price, and that was it. And so, Iris was a partner in that they came in with a plan for me to help me grow my business, because I didn't want to sit stagnant and not have a growing business. So and I needed something that was going to move forward as we went on with our sales process and attracting new clients. So I think that's kind of the big thing is the ones I looked at that I could eliminate right away was like I'll sell you the software, you download it, or we send it to you. You can put it on a server or whatever you can do, but it's not cloud-based. It's not this, those types of things, And so I wanted, things that were going to update, the most modern features that I could get, for my client group. So that's what was important to me.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, having people that actually knew not only the ins and outs of the software, but knew what you were doing internally as a payroll service processor and provider. That, to me, as well, being in the industry for a while, makes a huge difference. And there's no more technical operation than payroll. It's very, very complex. There's 3 different levels of taxes. Payroll processing in general is different for every business, especially in each state. They have their own little nuances. So I think when you're talking to a company about their software with payroll, couldn't agree more. It's very important for that representative to not only be a representative of the company and be an ambassador of the company and the face of the organization, but to really know payroll, know the pains you might be dealing with, know what you're looking for, know what your process looks like, not maybe to the T, but has a good idea of payroll. So yeah, I would agree more that knowledge is power more than anywhere in payroll. So,
right.
All right, next slide. And we're at poll number 2. So Gail, I'll hand it over to you to read through the poll for the folks.
Okay, this is our second polling question. What is the most important to you in a payroll partner? And there's several options here, so pick the one that is most appropriate for your situation. And the options we have listed include product features and functionality, customer support, continual investment in product improvement and enhancements, secure cloud-based technology, transparent pricing, high ROI, all of the above, or other. And if you pick other, we'd love to have you enter in the ask a question box what that other is. So go ahead and choose your best answer and click submit. And we'll let these answers roll in here for a few minutes, or for a few seconds actually. I think just 5 seconds more. 4, 3, 2, 1. And it looks like our lead answer is all of the above. All right.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to not make all of the above the answer for that poll, but I would say that all are equally as important, but to some businesses, some could mean more than the other. But fair enough, fair play for all of the above to be a good option there. So when getting down to the decision part of an evaluation with a payroll software, Pat, why did you actually select Iris Payroll's software? And really, how was the experience? Did it live up to be as advertised with the onboarding and the implementation?
Yeah, so, I picked it because of the resources. I trusted that the software was going to do. We did demos and everything else, customized demos, went through there. I was able to, think through my account base and say, okay, do I have the features that I need? Their team was very good, in assisting with things. You have an account manager on the inside to help you with services. Customer support was a big issue as well. And I wanted it to be cloud-based because we don't have to do updates and everything else. I wanted all that where we could access it from anywhere. In the case of inclement weather, or those types of things, or you're just out of the office and that you could do that. So those were kind of the important things in my process. The resources, the ability to get training and retraining for new staff as they came on board for the system. So we didn't want to necessarily just let them train with another processor. That was okay to shadow for a while, but we wanted to be fully trained in the software. So that was a big reason for me. And I would say on the data migration side, this is probably the reason why most people don't change software. Nobody wants to convert, a system. Sometimes it's easier just to continue doing what you're doing, do the workarounds, suffer with the pains. You should do something about it, but you don't do it. So, at Iris, we've got a data migration team, and so they can help get the data off of the old platform and get it over there, because it is a big process to convert. So our team can go out there and they can pull current year, prior year, and put it in payday by payday. So if you've got work comp audits and those types of things, you have those reports within the system. So reporting was another big thing for me as well. Export, import, those types of things, being able to, use APIs, pass data to other partners from the system, not rekeying, not hand keying, doing value add work as opposed to, just doing data entry work. So those were the things that were important to me. And the onboarding was obviously a good experience with the data migration folks.
So you mentioned trust, and then you also mentioned a couple of other, you trusted the software was going to do what you were told it would do. And there were teams, multiple teams that you mentioned. First of all, support. Yes, that's important. Account management, data migration. These are all teams that are part of an organization that you chose to use for your new software. I think, and there's, knowing internally, of course, there are more than just that. I think that embodies what a partner is all about too, is that you're not just looking at a sales rep and then you get handed to, the product and then customer support and you're on your own. You're carrying the bag and the torch and everything, and you make your own path. So I think that having the, like you said earlier, resources, having the multiple teams, no such thing as over communication. There's no such thing as more help. I think that really embodies a partner too. Next slide. So really getting into the meat and potatoes of what today's webinar is all about: software vendor versus software partner. Pat, how would you define, and there's no right or wrong answer, of course. Some people may have an opinion on this, some people may not. But knowing you as a payroll veteran and a champion over the years, how would you define the difference between a vendor and a partner when it comes to payroll software?
Oh, they're drastically different. You can go buy something, a piece of software off the shelf, and then you're stuck with trying to implement that software, deal with, any quirkiness of clients, right? So whether that be accruals or things like that in their handbook, and you're trying to, do those calculations, and so forth. So, a partner is there to assist with that so that, if you're trying to do electronic onboarding, and you need some assistance with that, at Iris, you've got an account manager to help with that. So, it's really more of a team effort in a partnership as opposed to just a vendor who sells just to sell once and then they move on. So, there's a lot of softwares that are out there, a lot of inexpensive softwares, a lot of really expensive softwares. But, at the end of the day, you need to find a partner that's going to kind of go down the road with you and be there with you in the future as you try to grow your business, problems that you run into and so forth. Maybe you're entering a new industry, a new state, and you need some assistance with that. That's where the partnership works out. Otherwise, you're the only person in the room and you've got to figure it out if you've just bought, a product from someone.
So this had an impact on your business, probably from scalability, longevity. And I know that you got out during the COVID time, just like a lot of people rightfully so should have and wanted to, and realized life's too short. So good time to exit. But your 14-year run, this gave you an advantage, I'm assuming, because of understanding the difference between a payroll software vendor and a payroll software partner, because of scalability, longevity, anything else?
Those were kind of the big things, but I would say also in that, compliance, tax, ACH, those types of things. I mean, you have to keep keep the pulse of what's going on in industry, right? So you've got to stay, you want to be a step ahead. You don't want to get behind. And so those are some of the things that you've got to be forward looking in that process. You need to have resources, that you can count on to assist you, if you have a problem or an issue. How do I fix this? What do I do? In that regard. So, I just found that, having a partner was a much better option than just buying a product.
Yeah, it is alarming.
It helped me scale. It helped me scale because I originally started my business where I did everything for everybody. And it didn't take very long to figure out that you couldn't scale doing that.
No.
So we with Iris, we were able to provide a client-facing side. We could let the clients enter employees, depending on the competence of at that client. There are different things you could let them do to remove some of the, like the data entry. Most people will turn in new hires with payroll. Well, that's a really hard process because now you're trying to get all those folks in, and then you got to pay them and everything else. So, it's better to let the client touch some of the stuff. And most clients today, they really do want access to their data. They want to be able to pull a report. They want to be able to do things along that line. And so, Iris allows for that, and that it just makes it a great product in my mind for payroll service.
Yeah, they want the visibility. They want a little bit of being in the know, but not to the extent if they're actually doing some of the work that they are paying you for. It's a good balance of I'm going to pay you to handle everything, but I'd like to be in the know and I'd like to see what I want to see because I have the rights to that. So yeah, that's a great point. Next slide, please. So, so look, I think we've, we can kind of paint it many different ways, but, and Pat really illustrated it best with the answer to the question earlier. Maybe not known too well in the industry yet, but a vendor is more of a merchant transactional provider in that, like, you have an off-the-shelf software that Pat mentioned where you can kind of, find it quickly on the internet, and it's maybe on the end caps in the store. It's very visible. It's in your face. And typically, things can work fine, but that is the sign of more of a vendor when it's just trying to get you to use the software immediately and probably doesn't have much to back up in terms of reliability, accountability, and trust. Whereas a payroll partner, payroll software partner, I should say, it's more invested in you actually succeeding, because the only way that company as a payroll software partner can actually grow and scale is through your success. So that's something to always keep in mind. But Pat, what kind of support did you, what kind of support should a firm expect from a payroll partner, and how crucial is that for your team, your clients, for you guys to end up supporting as well?
Well, I think support is probably one of the most important things, because you're serving clients that want an answer now, right? So if there's an issue with something, you need a partner who can address that concern right away for you, whether you've got to do an amended return or something else along that line. You need somebody who can help you do it. You don't want to learn as you go, basically on your own, and trying to figure that out. So support is just crucial to the whole growth model for you. I mean, you need people that, when you contact your partner, that they can give you answers, they can help you with issues, they can do all those types of things, whether it's doing a demo for your client. Maybe you've got a staff member who's not comfortable doing that, and then they can do that for you until you gain comfort, right? So those are things that are really, really important. But support, I'd say it's a really top item in that regard.
Yeah, customer support and support in general is Payroll is a support-driven and oriented business and task. Did you like and prefer that your payroll software partner was supporting you first, and if ever needed to your client, yes, but did you like that was more intimate between you and your provider?
Yes, and that builds trust too, right? As you go forward, you can rely on that partner, when you have an issue, and then if you had to, you can bring them in, for the end user if need be. So no, that was very important to me, and it's just got to be, those resources are paramount to growing a business, scaling the business, and really just enjoying the business and watching it grow, taking on new customers, seeing what they do to earn a living and so forth. So that's what I found the most fascinating thing about my payroll was, just seeing what people would do to earn a living, and then making sure that you took care of their employees, because they don't leave if you provide the service. I had some customers that were from day one that were still there when I left. So we didn't have a lot of churn. Mostly we would see, people might go out of business, but nobody really left because, of errors or so forth, because you could serve them the way they needed to be served.
Would you say that when you decided to use Iris Payroll and the journey kind of just continuously went on and on, would you say that you were educated by Iris?
Oh, yeah, no, exactly. User conferences, those types of things, those were very important to get together and see, new products and services, training sessions, webinars, all those things are really, really important in making sure that you have personal growth.
Yeah.
As a business.
Yeah, no, I think when you're, in your case too, as a startup, and even when you're not a startup, say you've been running payroll for 34 years, you will have to learn something new every year, because payroll changes, tax laws and tax code changes every year, sometimes multiple times throughout the year. So, the software from that perspective does need to keep tabs on things monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, annually, but also provide that education ongoing to all customers. So I think that's something any user should expect when they choose to make a decision towards a particular payroll software provider.
And it's got to be efficient for your process, right? So you've got to, you shouldn't have to, put a square peg into a round hole. This software should work for you. You should be able to tailor it and make sure that, you're not spending an inordinate amount of time doing tasks that you don't have to. So the automation is very, very important to you, so that you can, serve your client as quickly as possible, but accurately, always accurately. If you don't get your first payroll right, a lot of times you continue to blow your toes off. So it's important that you get it solid and you get it right the first time, and so that you can continue growth with, referrals from those clients to new customers that'll come on board with you, and just continue to grow that business.
Spot on. Absolutely. All right, next slide. So what kind of advice would you give to any business out there that's providing payroll services? What kind of advice would you give them to be able to, kind of sniff out the vendor versus partner? Also, just to overall, just select the best, most optimal software for their payroll business.
But so I think, as times have changed, the internet's a big part of that, right? So people will go out and do research on their own. So they know a little bit about, who the vendors are in the marketplace. They've kind of researched them a little bit. But, once you get that group down to maybe what you want to look at that you think have the features or functions that would serve your book of business, you want to then find, the things that we've talked about so far on this webinar, the resources, the partnership, those types of things that are going to help you, increase your business. You can bring those accounts over. Data migration, that's, a lot of people won't convert software just because of that, right? And I know I mentioned that before, but, that's a big deal. You need to have the ability to get, your account transferred over and up and running as quickly as possible, and then making sure those first payrolls are right. So, they want to find somebody, a vendor that they can trust and that knows what they're talking about when they discuss payroll with them or the transition migration onboarding process, with that new partner.
Yeah, I mean, that's so accurate and so true. And I can verify all of that because obviously when we talk to companies, accounting firms, payroll firms that evaluate our systems, one of their biggest things before they say, let's move forward is, hey, I really need to trust and make sure, and I need you to reassure me that we're going to be kind of handheld here. We're going to be like children that need to be guided by a parent for the first couple of months. And we need to be told what to do and how to do it because this is a learning curve. We know payroll, but we don't know this software yet. And so you mentioned earlier, payroll is huge on accuracy. You don't have very much room for error, except for maybe a couple of decimal points occasionally. But there is a need and a demand for such an intimate concierge period where you're getting implementation, training, customer success. And that's one of my favorite things is to actually explain that and articulate that and then have our organization back it up, which makes a huge difference. And everyone rightfully so should have that demand and that desire to get that type of service up front. Because it is a scary journey that you're embarking on. But like you said, firms know they have to make that decision. It's just tough sometimes. We know people, how reluctant we can be to change. So, all right, if we go over to the next slide, poll number 3 is going to be up. And Gail, I'll hand it over to you.
All right, this is our third of 4 polling questions. If you are thinking of looking for a new payroll partner, why? And your options are, we're doing payroll in-house and it's taking too much staff time. We need a partner to take on the tax compliance. Our current platform is too hard to use. Our customers don't like our software platform or the process, or either none of the above or all of the above. So go ahead and choose the answer that's most appropriate to your practice and then click submit. Again, it looks like these are coming in kind of across the board. We'll leave this up for just a few more seconds. All right, I think we've got our answers here. And it's looking like about half are saying none of the above. And then other answers are spread across the spectrum here.
All right, thank you so much, Gail. And thank you everybody for taking about a minute every time we launch a new poll. Really appreciate everyone's participation. All right, so this next slide, we're going to jump into the actual Iris payroll solution a little bit, give you some high-level understanding of its features and functionalities. And by the way, we can actually, if anyone wants to scan the QR code here on the screen, please feel free to do that with your smartphone and the camera. But ultimately, what our Iris payroll software embodies is the ability to have a very intuitive, user-friendly, and feature-rich platform to offer. Because what that means is, number one, it's going to be very easy for people to learn that are taking it on. It's going to be, it's going to save you a lot of time. It's going to save you a lot of stress on the payroll, compliance, and tax process side. So we alleviate those burdens. And then, of course, it's easy for even end user clients of yours to be able to use. So like Pat mentioned earlier, clients do want some access. They do want to get a portal granted to them. Maybe not all the time, but they want that reassurance that they have an ability to get in there and see things that are important to their business, which payroll is. And then lastly, of course, in my opinion, those 3 are the topmost, is the feature-rich portion. You can have any, not all payroll softwares are built equally. That's one of the most important things to realize and remember at the end of the day. There's no perfect software, but having one that is feature and functionality rich and having it deep is, which, represents the ability to be flexible on the payroll process, pay entry process, the tax form and the tax payment process. Having a lot of flexibility around that, having nice bells and whistles that allow employers to do certain things, employees to do certain things. So being feature and function rich is also a really important aspect of the payroll software. So when you have a chance, take the QR code there and you can scan it and you can learn more about our software. I'll give about another 10 seconds before we can move over to the next slide. All right, thank you. Again, really streamlining and creating a lot of automation in a software is huge for any payroll business that's running payroll for whether it's 5, 50, or 200 payroll clients. So we need to streamline things. That's always important. There's always an ability to kind of do what you're doing better. And that obviously starts with the evaluation process. But again, just kind of doubling down on what we mentioned earlier, having a system that is constantly staying up with compliance updates, having a system that is modern and intuitive and very user-friendly. Ease of use is probably the biggest thing that we hear from new customers that they're looking for in a payroll software is ease of use. I don't want it to be complex. I want my 2-year-old to be able to understand it. And that's actually what resonates the most with people that want to use new software is how easy can this be learned? How quickly can it be learned? Having advanced tax capabilities is huge because you do need to stay up with federal, state, local, and city taxes. And then, deep integrations, which fall into the feature function rich area of what I mentioned earlier. That can be integrations that are through APIs. That could be integrations through partnerships for data transmittal or just, having policies with workers' compensation, pay as you go, benefit administration. So these all fall into streamlining the payroll process. We can go to the next slide. And I'd be remiss to not mention that, of course, yes, this is a webinar hosted by CPA Practice Advisor, and we're going over Iris Payroll, and we're talking about Pat's journey as a previous payroll service bureau owner. But one of the things that we really do want to showcase is how much of a payroll software partner in general, Iris is today. We have a very tailored and custom process from start to finish. So it is not meant for everybody, and that's fine. We determine that through early stage processes with prospective users to take a look at our Iris payroll software. Most importantly is we want to learn about your business. We want to learn about your needs, your requirements. We could actually figure out if we're even of a fit for people before we even show the product. And that's important to us because we don't want to waste anyone's time. Your time is precious. So we take that path initially to make sure that we check boxes, that we are aligned on a lot of missions and visions internally, and we have a synergy between our companies. Following the decision, of course, to say Iris Payroll is the route I want to go, there is ample support and services. And like Pat and I mentioned earlier, that is really what embodies a payroll partner is you get the support from the colleagues and the teams at the company. You get the service, the professional services to help you convert, to help you understand the products better, and to actually showcase it to your clients. So support and services really embody what a payroll partner is all about. And yes, of course, professional services, again, that has multiple tiers, but we mentioned earlier the data migration and the data conversion groups of professional services to make sure that your onboarding and your implementation, which everyone, like Pat mentioned, is terrified about, and which stops them from actually making the decision to switch softwares, that is what pretty much eliminates a lot of that burden is through data conversion services. Next slide, which will bring us to poll number 4, our fourth poll. So I'll let Gail take it from here.
All right, this polling question is, are you interested in scheduling a demo or consultation to learn more about Iris Payroll? And just pick the answer that's most appropriate to you. I'd like a demo of the Iris Payroll software solution. I would like someone to reach out to me with more product info or pricing, or not at this time. And then just click submit. And I think at this point, we're ready for you guys to handle questions and answers, which you can start on while this poll is still up.
Okay, I'm Michelle Meyer. I work with both Pat and Tyler, and I'm going to take over just reading the questions. We have gotten a few allowed to you, so either one of you can answer. Just to let everybody know, CPA Practice Advisor will send us a copy of all the questions. So if we do run out of time, be sure that we will respond to you via email if we don't get to your question. Okay, because we do have quite a few actually. We have Michael asking, how can the system keep us in compliance?
So I'll start with that, and I'll let Pat kind of chime in on personal experience. But the system itself is eventually keeping you in compliance, but it really does start with our organization, Iris, because we do have product compliance teams that cover all 50 states, all federal tax obligations, and then, of course, local and city requirements. So we are updating anything that has to be done annually. If needing to be sooner, we do, of course, make those updates to things like W-2 forms, 1099 forms, 941 forms, you name it. So we are actually, as an organization, making sure that our system is up to date with any forms, any rates, a lot of things like that. But I'll let Pat kind of chime in if I missed anything.
Yeah, and so, our team is out there. They're making all the rate changes in the system. So if a state changes, if you have a local or something else, all that's being done by our team. And really the only thing that you've got to do to stay in compliance is to make sure you get your SUTA rate updated, from your clients, right? Either via rate exchange file, or you have access to their account. You can see that information. So, the software will keep you in compliance, electronic filing and everything else out there for you. So, you're not really, left out on an island, right? Because payroll can be complicated. Tyler brought that up. We've got 50 states and everybody does it a little bit different, and they can, enact new laws all the time, minimum wage changes and so forth. So just staying, up to date on that and knowing that that's being handled for you is a plus.
Okay, we have a couple integration questions. First from Tom, he asked, what interfaces does Iris have with timekeeping systems such as Swipe Clock?
Well, it's a great question. In terms of integrations, one such as Swipe Clock, well, Swipe Clock actually is an Iris product today. That acquisition actually took place about a couple of months ago. But even prior to us acquiring Swipe Clock and now Swipe Clock being under the Iris family, we do have full integrations to both TimeWorks Plus, as well as Workforce Hub, and what they're, of course, developing with NextGen. So fully integrated and embedded with Swipe Clock, as well as some native timekeeping options. But there are plenty of other integrations. I know that question was specifically for time and attendance, so I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, the other integration question comes from Patricia, wondering how it integrates, if it integrates, and how with Thomson Reuters.
Yeah, so there's always integration capabilities at the end of the day through import wizards and our functionality that we have that's mapped in the system already to take imports from other systems like Thomson Reuters. I know from an export into like general ledgers, I know that QuickBooks Online is the very popular integration that's open for any software. I don't think that Thomson Reuters is something we automatically API integrate into, but you can always get your general ledger back into a Thomson Reuters system as well. Maybe if we had more clarification on like what the type of integration was looking for with Thomson Reuters, that would be helpful too. But I think that's a good starting point.
Okay, Patricia also asked, how do you compare with ADP?
So that's a great question. I'll let Pat handle it, just because I know he mentioned earlier about being a competitor to the certain providers that you could actually choose to use their software with.
So I would say it's a day and night difference, right? They basically own your client. They're the ones processing everything. If something goes wrong, you've got to put a ticket in, try to get that thing fixed, where, they can sell insurance services. They can eventually pull that client away. With Iris, we don't compete with you. So we don't sell out there to folks who are, like an ADP. We're not doing those types of things, but we are out there. We've got a modern software product, and it's very intuitive, easy to use, and it's a good product for serving your client base, whether you want them to be online or not online, you want to do it yourself. You've got all these options. You've got features and functions in there, with an ADP, just using them as an example. Generally, you have silos with them. So timekeeping is its own thing. Payroll is its own thing. Workers' comp would be its own thing. So it's not like they go together, but no one is able to sell everything to you at one time. And so that's kind of one of the issues I think with them. And then it's just responsiveness for support is kind of the other big issue, with them. They're a good provider, not knocking them. They are a good provider, but sometimes you don't get the support that you need, or you've got to work with different folks within the company, know your company code when you call in and things like that.
Okay. Robert is asking if our software includes 1099s.
Yes. Yep. Of course.
Yep. And then Jenny asks, when you mention automatic filing of payroll reports and W-2s, are we able to review the reports before they are filed?
Yeah, always. And that's the way it should be. I would hope that that's kind of a guardrail in most softwares, but I know, again, when you get an off-the-shelf software, it may just be, it is what it is. But now in our platform, you are able to produce, generate, review all the W-2 forms that are already built into the software that get updated, of course, per run. And there is obviously an option for automatic e-filing. There's an option for, your manual push of the filing out of the system. But of course, there is the ability to review all those. And then, of course, look at W-2 reconciliation reports to show all W-2 amounts and a consolidated report for an employer. So, yes.
Okay. Tom is asking, does the software handle child support garnishments?
Yes. So, of course, it does take care of child support garnishments. And I think he was asking exactly how. So you have an option where you can actually have that child support garnishment electronically processed to the state that you're in, or you can actually opt for it to not be automatically processed through EFT functionality. But it does calculate child support, and that is an electronic garnishment.
Okay. Tom is also asking, does the software have interfaces with all state and local tax authorities for electronic tax filings?
Allstate, have not heard of that type of integration, but I know like Intuit's TurboTax for tax filing, we do have an integration with.
Okay. And this is kind of an interesting question, I think, for Pat to answer. This person is asking, isn't the customer service level based on the doings of the service bureau that is using the software, not necessarily based on the software itself?
Well, that is true, but but to serve your client, you may need to have resources in order to answer those particular questions. And so my point was really kind of geared around that you do have support if you need it. But yes, the service level is going to come from the payroll service bureau of the firm.
Okay, and let me just check. I think that is it for the questions. That is it. But if you do have other questions, please just go to our website, which is www.irisglobal.com, and you put /payroll. You'll see all our different payroll solutions. And if you scroll right to the bottom, there's a contact us form. So just go ahead and fill out that form, and somebody will get in touch with you. Another question did just come in from Danielle. Does the system account for out-of-state virtual employees?
Yeah, so you can have, if the business is domiciled in, let's say Kansas, and you have employees that live in Oklahoma, Colorado, the system does handle that. You can have two working states. Of course, it all goes back to one unemployment state, which is just law anyway. But yeah, you can have employees that live virtually outside of the state that the employer is residing in.
Okay, maybe we can just give it another minute to see if any other questions come through. I think, Gail, that is it.
All right, great. Thanks so much. Thank you all for attending today's webinar. We really appreciate your sharing your time with us. And we'd like to thank Iris Payroll for making this event possible and for enabling us to offer a free CPE credit to each attendee. As a reminder, you'll receive a link for your CPE credit certificate later today in your email. It'll be coming from CPA Practice Advisor, so keep an eye out for that. If you have any questions about CPE, you can contact me directly at gperry, G-P-E-R-R-Y, at cpapracticeadvisor.com. Also, if others are watching this event with you at the same computer and they require a CPE credit, you can email me their names and addresses and we'll issue certificates for them. Again, that's gperry at cpapracticeadvisor.com. As soon as our audio ends, you'll be presented with a post-event survey evaluation form. We hope you'll take a moment to share your feedback with us so we can continue to improve our webinar series. Thank you all, everyone, so very much, and our audio will end now.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.